The desperate Signal Admiral Zexhai stood in the command center of her flagship, watching the screens that showed her worst nightmare coming true. The mechanical monsters called Devourers were getting closer to her homeworld every hour. Her people had fought these metal creatures for 3 years, and they were losing badly. The Veltar had once ruled 12 star systems. Now only 3 planets remained free, and the shields protecting them were failing. Every day brought news of another world consumed, another billion lives lost to the endless hunger of the machines. Admiral, called her communications officer, his forearms shaking as he worked at his station. The defense grid around Veltar Prime just lost another sector. We have maybe 6 days before they break through completely. Zexhai closed her eyes and tried to think. They had tried everything. Their best weapons barely scratched the Devourer ships. Their most advanced tactics had been learned and countered within hours. The mechanical swarm adapted to every strategy they used, growing stronger with each victory. What about the other species? She asked. Have any of them responded to our calls for help? The communications officer looked down at his console sadly. The Crethans say they cannot spare any ships. The Morvac Empire claims they are dealing with their own Devourer attacks. The Galactic Council promises to send aid, but their nearest fleet is still 40 days away. 40 days. They would all be dead in 6. Zexhai walked to the great window that looked out into space. In the distance, she could see the glow of fires on the night side of her home planet. The Devourers had sent advanced scouts through the shield gaps and civilian areas were being attacked. Children were dying while she stood here feeling helpless. Admiral, her science officer spoke up. There might be one more option. Zexhai turned to face him. What do you mean? The young officer pulled up a star chart on the main screen. 3 months ago, our deep space sensors picked up some unusual quantum signatures from this region. He pointed to a small yellow star. The pattern suggested an advanced civilization with military-grade technology. We never investigated because the Council had no records of any species in that area. You think there might be someone there who could help us? The quantum patterns were very strong, Admiral. Whoever lives there has powerful technology, maybe powerful enough to fight the Devourers. Zexhai stared at the star on the map. It was their only hope. Send a message. Tell them what we face and ask for their help. Include all the tactical data we have on the Devourers and our coordinates. The communications officer started working on the message. What should I tell them about payment? Most species want something in return for military aid. Tell them we will give them anything they want if they help save our people. The officer nodded and began composing the distress call. He included star maps, weapon specifications, and tactical information about the Devourer threat. The message explained that the Veltar Confederation needed immediate military assistance from any available fleet. What the officer did not notice was a small error in his quantum frequency calculations. The stress of the situation and 3 days without sleep had made him careless. Instead of aiming the message at the mysterious star system, the transmission was pointed at a different yellow star entirely, a star that the galaxy had dismissed as hosting only primitive life forms. The message shot across space at faster-than-light speeds, carrying the desperate plea of a dying civilization toward a small blue world that most of the galaxy had never heard of. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen was working late at the radio telescope facility in Puerto Rico. She had been tracking some interesting signals from deep space when something incredible happened. Every screen in the control room suddenly lit up with data. What the hell? She whispered, staring at the readings. The signal was clearly artificial and incredibly complex. But more than that, it was clearly a message. Sarah quickly called her supervisor, then the director of the facility. Within an hour, the world's best linguists and computer experts were working to decode the transmission. What they found changed everything. The message was from an alien species called the Veltar. They were under attack by something called Devourers and desperately needed military help. The message included detailed information about spaceship designs, weapon systems, and faster-than-light travel. But the most shocking part was what the aliens assumed about Earth. The message was written as if humanity was already a major spacefaring civilization, with powerful warships and advanced technology. The aliens were asking for Earth's grand fleet to come and save them. They think we have a space navy, Dr. Chen told her director over the phone. They think we have faster-than-light ships and energy weapons. Do we tell them the truth? Her director asked. Sarah looked at the data again. According to the message, An entire civilization was about to be wiped out. Billions of innocent people would die if no one helped them. How long do they have? According to their timeline, about 6 days before their defenses fail completely. Sarah stared out the window at the night sky. Somewhere out there, people were dying while calling for help from a species they thought could save them. Earth had been contacted by aliens for the first time in human history, and they were begging humanity to be the heroes they thought humans already were. "We need to contact the government," she said finally. All the governments. The next few hours were chaos. The message was forwarded to NASA, then to the Pentagon, then to world leaders. Emergency meetings were called in Washington, Moscow, Beijing, and every other major capital. By dawn, President Martinez was addressing an emergency session of the United Nations. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "we have received a distress call from an alien civilization. They are facing extinction, and they believe we have the power to help them." The debate that followed was intense. Some argued that humanity should admit the truth about their limited space capabilities. Others insisted that they should ignore the message entirely and avoid getting involved in alien wars. But in the end, one fact dominated all others. For the first time in human history, another species was asking for help. They had reached out across the stars because they thought humanity was brave and strong enough to stand against the darkness. "We have 6 days," President Martinez announced, "to become the civilization they believe we are." The most ambitious project in human history was about to begin. Every space agency, every military force, and every brilliant mind on Earth would work together to answer an impossible call for help. They would build a fleet from nothing. They would learn alien technology in days instead of decades. They would take humanity's first step into galactic civilization not as explorers or conquerors, but as heroes answering a cry for help. The Veltar had sent their message to the wrong star system, but maybe, just maybe, they had sent it to exactly the right species. The impossible response. President Martinez stood before the largest gathering of world leaders in human history. Representatives from every nation sat in the emergency session of the United Nations, their faces showing the same mixture of excitement and terror that she felt. 6 days ago, we thought we were alone in the universe, she began. Now we know that not only are there other intelligent species out there, but one of them needs our help. The Veltar Confederation has asked for our military assistance against an enemy that has already destroyed dozens of worlds. The Russian delegate raised his hand. "Madam President, with respect, we barely have the ability to reach our own moon reliably. How can we possibly help in an interstellar war?" Martinez nodded. "That's exactly the challenge we face. The aliens think we already have a space fleet capable of faster-than-light travel. They think we have energy weapons and shields. They've asked Earth's Grand Fleet to come save them." Murmurs filled the Great Hall. The Chinese representative spoke up. "Are you suggesting we tell them the truth about our capabilities?" "I'm suggesting we make their assumptions come true," Martinez replied. "We have 6 days to build the fleet they think we already have." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, the head of NASA stood up. "Madam President, what you're proposing is impossible. We would need decades to develop the technology for interstellar travel." Even with the information in their message, Dr. Sarah Chen, who had been invited as an expert on the alien transmission, stepped forward. "Actually, sir, that might not be true. The Veltar message included detailed technical specifications. They didn't just ask for help. They sent us a complete database of their technology, assuming we would understand it." She activated a holographic display that showed complex diagrams and equations. They included star charts, faster-than-light drive schematics, weapon designs, and navigation systems. "It's all here." Dr. James Wright from DARPA's Theoretical Physics Division studied the display. "This is incredible. They've essentially given us a complete technical manual for space warfare. The question is whether we can understand and build any of it in 6 days." "We have to try," Martinez said firmly. "Every major corporation, every space agency, every military research facility on Earth will work together on this. We're going to call it Operation Guardian Angel." The next 72 hours saw the most intense technological development effort in human history. SpaceX, Blue Origin, NASA, the European Space Agency, Russia's space program, China's space agency. All the old rivals became partners overnight. Elon Musk's factories began working around the clock to build rocket components. Jeff Bezos redirected his entire space program to the project. The International Space Station became the central hub for the most ambitious construction project ever attempted. Dr. Wright found himself leading a team of the world's smartest scientists and engineers. They worked in shifts, sleeping only when they collapsed from exhaustion. The alien technical data was incredibly advanced, but it was designed to be understood by spacefaring species. The key insight, Dr. Wright explained to his team, is that we don't need to fully understand their technology. We just need to adapt it to work with what we already have. The breakthrough came on day 3. Instead of trying to build alien ships, they would convert existing human technology using alien principles. The International Space Station would become the flagship of humanity's first fleet. We're going to take everything we have in orbit and turn it into warships, Dr. Wright announced. Cargo containers will become missile platforms. Communication satellites will become targeting systems. We'll use our nuclear weapons as warheads for alien-designed delivery systems. Meanwhile, General Patricia Knox was working on the military side of the operation. If we're going to do this, she told her staff, we need volunteers who understand they probably won't come back. The response was overwhelming. Astronauts, pilots, Marines, engineers. People from every branch of the military and space programs volunteered for what everyone knew was likely a suicide mission. They would have maybe 4 days to learn how to operate technology that was centuries ahead of human science. Captain Elena Vasquez, commander of the International Space Station, became the fleet's admiral almost by accident. She was already in space, she understood complex systems, and most importantly, she was willing to take responsibility for leading humanity's first interstellar military mission. I've spent my whole career dreaming about meeting aliens, she told the volunteers gathering at the station. I never imagined our first meeting would be in a war zone. The construction work was incredible to watch. Cargo ships launched from Earth every few hours, carrying everything from nuclear warheads to computer systems. The space station grew larger by the day as new modules were attached. Other structures were built around smaller space platforms and even large satellites. Dr. Wright's team made breakthrough after breakthrough. They couldn't build alien technology from scratch, but they could modify human technology to work with alien principles. Nuclear missiles were fitted with alien guidance systems. Conventional explosives were modified to work in space combat. The most important discovery was the faster-than-light drive system. The aliens used something called quantum tunnel drives that folded space-time. Human scientists couldn't build these drives, but they could modify existing rocket engines to create a crude version of the same effect. It's like trying to build a sports car using parts from a bicycle, Dr. Wright explained. It shouldn't work, but somehow we're making it work. By day 5, the impossible was happening. A fleet was actually taking shape around Earth. 23 vessels of various sizes, all built from modified human technology guided by alien science. They weren't pretty, and they definitely weren't standard military ships. But they could travel faster than light, and they carried enough firepower to level a city. The largest ship was the UES Determination. Built around the expanded International Space Station, it carried nuclear missiles, railgun prototypes, and a crew of 30 volunteers. Beside it floated the Phoenix Rising, a converted SpaceX rocket loaded with conventional explosives and guided by the best pilots on Earth. Each ship was different because each had been built from whatever was available. Some were modified cargo ships, others were rebuilt satellites. A few were completely new constructions made from parts launched from every space agency on Earth. Captain Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Determination, looking out at her makeshift fleet. In the distance, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the darkness of space. Most of the people on those ships had never been in space before this week. They were about to travel to another star system to fight enemies they had never seen. "Control, this is Guardian Angel Fleet," she said into her communicator. "All ships report ready for departure." The voice from Earth came back immediately. "Guardian Angel Fleet, you are cleared for departure. Bring our people home safe." Vasquez smiled despite herself. They weren't just representing Earth anymore. They were representing the idea that when someone calls for help, humanity answers. "All ships prepare for quantum tunnel activation," she announced. "Next stop, the Veltar system." One by one, the ships of humanity's first interstellar fleet disappeared into folds of twisted space-time, carrying Earth's hopes toward an alien war. The fleet of necessity. The journey through quantum tunnel space was unlike anything the human crew had ever experienced. Captain Vasquez watched the navigation displays as space folded around them, carrying Earth's makeshift fleet toward the Veltar system at impossible speeds. Status report. She called out to her crew aboard the Determination. All systems are holding together, Captain, reported Chief Engineer Rodriguez. The alien drive modifications are working, but I'm not sure how long our human systems can handle this kind of stress. Around them, the other 22 ships of the Guardian Angel fleet were experiencing their own struggles. The Phoenix Rising had already reported minor system failures. The New Harmony was having trouble with power distribution. Every ship in the fleet was pushing human technology beyond its designed limits. Dr. Wright monitored the fleet's progress from the science station. Captain, we're getting data from the other ships. The quantum tunnel drives are working, but we're using them in ways the aliens never intended. We're basically forcing bicycle parts to work like sports car engines. Will we make it to the Veltar system? Vasquez asked. We'll make it, Wright replied. The question is whether we'll be in any shape to fight when we get there. The crew of the Determination was a perfect example of humanity's approach to this impossible mission. Captain Vasquez had been a space station commander for 3 years, but she had never commanded a warship. Chief Engineer Rodriguez was brilliant with space station systems, but alien technology was completely new to him. Lieutenant Sarah Kim had been a fighter pilot in the Air Force before volunteering for this mission. She now found herself operating weapon systems that had been theoretical just a week ago. Sergeant Maria Santos was a Marine who had trained for ground combat, but now she was preparing to fight alien machines in the corridors of a spaceship. Captain, came a voice from the communication station. We're receiving messages from the other ships in our fleet. On the main screen, faces appeared from around the Guardian Angel fleet. These were the people who had volunteered to represent humanity in its first interstellar conflict. They came from different countries, different backgrounds, different military services, but they all shared the same determination. Commander Jiang Wei from the converted Chinese space station looked tired but determined. My crew is ready, Captain. We've been practicing with the railgun systems. Captain Johnson from the modified European satellite platform nodded. The missile systems are online. We've managed to fit our nuclear warheads with the alien targeting computers. One by one, the ship commanders reported their status. None of them were professional warship captains. Most had never been in combat, but they had all volunteered when they learned that aliens needed help, and now they were humanity's representatives in galactic warfare. Listen up, everyone, Captain Vasquez addressed the fleet. In about 6 hours, we're going to drop out of quantum tunnel space in the middle of an alien war. We don't know exactly what we'll find there, but we know it won't be easy. She paused, looking at the faces of her fellow humans on the screen. The aliens who called for help think we're an advanced military force with centuries of space combat experience. They think we have standardized weapons and professional training. They're wrong about all of that. Some of the commanders smiled despite the seriousness of the situation. But they're right about one thing, Vasquez continued. They're right that humanity will answer when someone calls for help. We may not be the fleet they expected, but we're the fleet they're going to get. And we're going to do everything we can to save their people. The final hours of the journey were spent in preparation. Each ship in the fleet was different because each had been built from whatever was available. This created problems for coordination, but it also created opportunities. The Determination carried nuclear missiles that had been modified with alien guidance systems. The Phoenix Rising was loaded with conventional explosives and guided by Earth's best pilots. The New Harmony had railgun prototypes that fired solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Some ships carried experimental electromagnetic pulse weapons. Others had been fitted with Earth's most advanced conventional weapons. A few ships were basically flying bombs, designed to cause as much damage as possible if they were destroyed. The key advantage we have, Dr. Wright explained to the crew, is unpredictability. Galactic warfare has been standardized for thousands of years. Everyone uses energy weapons, everyone has shields, everyone follows the same tactical principles. And we don't, Captain Vasquez said. Exactly. We're bringing weapons and tactics that these devourer machines have never encountered. They adapt to what they face, but they can only adapt to things they understand. Sergeant Santos was cleaning her rifle when she heard this. You mean our old-fashioned weapons might actually work better than alien technology? In some situations, yes, Dr. Wright replied. A solid metal bullet doesn't care about energy shields. A chemical explosive doesn't need advanced power systems. Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution. As they approached the Veltar system, the crew prepared for battle in their own ways. Some prayed. Some checked and rechecked their equipment. Some wrote letters to families they might never see again. Captain Vasquez stood on the bridge looking out at the swirling patterns of quantum tunnel space. In a few hours, they would either save an alien civilization or die trying. Either way, humanity would have taken its first step into galactic society. "Captain," the navigator announced, "we're approaching the exit point. Quantum tunnel collapse in 30 minutes. Vasquez activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Guardian Angel Actual. Prepare for normal space transition. When we drop out of quantum tunnel, we go directly into combat formation." She took a deep breath and looked around at her crew. They were about to become the first humans to engage in interstellar warfare. They were flying ships held together by determination and duct tape, carrying weapons that were half human technology and half alien science. But they were here because someone had called for help. And humanity had answered. "Guardian Angel Fleet," she announced, "prepare for combat. Let's show the galaxy what Earth looks like when it comes to help." The quantum tunnel began to collapse around them, and 23 human ships prepared to enter alien space for the first time in history. First contact and rude awakenings, the Guardian Angel Fleet dropped out of quantum tunnel space into a nightmare. The Veltar system was a graveyard of destroyed ships and shattered defense platforms. Debris from battles floated everywhere, and in the distance, the mechanical swarms called Devourers moved like deadly clouds around the remaining inhabited planets. "Jesus Christ," whispered Lieutenant Kim from the weapons station. "How many ships have been destroyed here?" Captain Vasquez stared at the tactical display. Thousands of wrecked vessels drifted through space, the remains of fleets from multiple species. The Devourers had been busy. "Communications, try to contact the Veltar fleet," she ordered. "I'm picking up a signal, Captain. It's coming from a large ship near the third planet. They're trying to hail us. Put them through." The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at their first living alien. Admiral HFY appeared on the screen, her forearms moving as she worked at multiple control stations. Her species looked somewhat like tall, thin humans, but with extra arms and large compound eyes. "Unknown vessels, this is Admiral HFY of the Veltar Confederation," came the transmission. The alien's voice was translated by computers, but the exhaustion and desperation came through clearly. "Please identify yourselves and your fleet designation." Captain Vasquez took a deep breath. This was humanity's first contact with an alien species, and it was happening in the middle of a war zone. "Admiral, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Defense Fleet. We received your distress call." The silence that followed lasted several long seconds. Captain Vasquez could see Admiral HFY's compound eyes widening in confusion. "Terran?" the Admiral finally said. We are not familiar with your species. Are you a newly contacted race? Your fleet designation doesn't match any Galactic Council records." Dr. Wright, monitoring from the science station, felt his stomach sink. The aliens had never heard of humanity. Their distress signal had been sent randomly into space, and they had accidentally contacted a species that the galaxy didn't even know existed. "Admiral," Captain Vasquez said carefully, "we're from a system you might know as Sol 3. We may not be the fleet you were expecting, but we're here to help." Through the viewports, the crew could see the Devourer swarms beginning to notice the new arrivals. The mechanical entities were turning toward the human fleet, their ships moving with cold, precise coordination. "Captain," Admiral HFY's voice now carried desperate hope. "Whatever capabilities your fleet possesses, we welcome your assistance. The Devourers have adapted to all known weapon systems. They've consumed the fleets of 17 different species." Captain Vasquez looked at her crew, former astronauts, engineers, and military personnel, who had volunteered for what everyone knew was likely a suicide mission. They were flying improvised ships with jury-rigged weapons, about to face an enemy that had destroyed entire civilizations. "Admiral, you're about to learn something about humanity," she said. "We specialize in things that have never been tried before." The Devourer swarms were accelerating toward them now. On the tactical display, hundreds of mechanical ships moved in perfect formation. Each ship was identical, part of a collective intelligence that learned from every battle and adapted to every weapon. "Captain," Lieutenant Kim reported, "I'm reading their weapon signatures. They're using some kind of energy drain system, plasma weapons, and what looks like electronic warfare capabilities." "Standard galactic technology," Dr. Wright added grimly. Exactly what they've been adapting to defeat for years. Admiral Zexhi's voice came through the communicator again. Captain Vasquez, I must warn you. The Devourers learn quickly. They will analyze your weapons and defenses, then adapt to counter them. Every tactic we've tried, they've found a way to defeat. Admiral, Captain Vasquez replied. They've never fought humans before. The lead Devourer ships opened fire first, sending beams of energy toward the human fleet. The alien weapons were designed to drain power from standard galactic ships, shutting down their systems and leaving them helpless. The beams hit the Determination and several other human ships. Nothing happened. Captain? Chief Engineer Rodriguez reported with amazement. Their energy drain weapons aren't affecting us. Our power systems are too different from standard galactic technology. Captain Vasquez smiled grimly. All ships, you are cleared to engage. Show them what Earth ingenuity looks like. The Phoenix Rising opened fire first, launching a spread of nuclear-tipped missiles toward the Devourer formation. The mechanical entities tried to use their standard countermeasures, energy barriers designed to stop plasma weapons and particle beams. The nuclear warheads didn't care about energy barriers. They were simple chemical and atomic explosives that created destruction through pure force, not sophisticated energy manipulation. The first Devourer ship simply vanished in a ball of nuclear fire. What weapon was that? Admiral Zexhi's stunned voice came through the communicator. Nuclear ordnance, Captain Vasquez replied calmly. We brought about 300 of them. The Devourer swarm paused for exactly 2.3 seconds, the time it took their collective intelligence to process this new information. Then they adapted their formation and attacked again. But the humans weren't done surprising them. The New Harmony opened fire with its railgun prototypes, sending solid tungsten rods flying at incredible speeds. The Devourer's energy shields, designed to stop plasma and lasers, were useless against chunks of metal traveling at relativistic velocities. More Devourer ships were destroyed, their hulls simply punched through by kinetic impacts. Incredible, Admiral Zexhi whispered. Your weapons are so primitive, but they're working. Sometimes primitive is better, Captain Vasquez replied as she watched her fleet tear into the Devourer formation. Complex systems can be hacked or adapted to. A big piece of metal moving really fast is just a big piece of metal moving really fast. The battle was going better than anyone had hoped, but Captain Vasquez knew it wouldn't last. The Devourers were learning, adapting their tactics to deal with humanity's unconventional weapons. Then the enemy made their first serious attempt at boarding. Devourer attack pods launched toward the human ships, filled with mechanical entities designed to take control of enemy vessels from within. Captain, Sergeant Santos reported from the security station. We've got boarders incoming. Multiple pods heading for our docking bays. Let them come, Captain Vasquez said. They're about to get another education in human warfare. The Devourer boarding pods locked onto the Determination's hull and began cutting through. Mechanical entities poured into the ship's corridors, their sensors scanning for standard galactic technology they could interface with and control. Instead, they found Sergeant Santos and her squad of Marines, armed with old-fashioned assault rifles and grenades. Contact, Santos shouted as she opened fire. The chemical propellant bullets tore through the mechanical invaders, who had been designed to fight energy weapons and electronic warfare. The Devourers tried to adapt, but their programming had no reference point for humans with gunpowder weapons and a willingness to fight in close quarters. They were machines built to counter advanced technology, not Marines with rifles and bad attitudes. They're down, Santos reported. Whatever these things are, they don't handle good old-fashioned bullets very well. But even as the humans celebrated their early victories, Captain Vasquez could see the larger picture on the tactical display. The Devourer swarm was massive, and they were learning from each encounter. Humanity's advantages wouldn't last forever. Admiral Zexhi, she transmitted, how quickly can your remaining ships reach the Devourer command vessel? Their central coordination ship? Captain, that's suicide. It's protected by their entire fleet. Captain Vasquez looked at the tactical display and smiled. The Devourers had focused their entire swarm on the human fleet, recognizing it as the greatest threat they had ever encountered. Not anymore, Admiral. They've left their command ship vulnerable to deal with us. This is your chance. What happened next would be remembered as the most audacious military maneuver in galactic history. The Terran solution. The plan was insane, but it was the only chance they had. Captain Vasquez watched the tactical display as the entire Devourer swarm focused on her small human fleet, leaving their command vessel protected by only a handful of ships. Admiral HFY, she transmitted to the surviving Veltar forces, "You have maybe 10 minutes before they realize what we're doing. Get to that command ship and destroy it. Captain, we cannot abandon you. Your fleet will be destroyed." "That's what we're here for, Admiral. That's what humans do." The Devourer swarm had grown larger as more mechanical ships arrived from across the system. They had never faced weapons like humanity's before, and they were bringing everything they had to study and counter these new threats. "All ships," Captain Vasquez announced to her fleet. "We're going to give Admiral HFY the chance she needs. Our job is to keep every single Devourer focused on us. Make some noise." The Guardian Angel fleet spread out into attack formation, 23 ships against thousands of mechanical entities. The math was simple and brutal. The Phoenix Rising led the charge, its pilot laughing over the communicator as he dove straight into the enemy formation. "This is Commander Johnson. If I'm going to die in space, I'm taking as many of these metal bastards with me as I can." The converted SpaceX rocket launched every missile it carried, nuclear warheads blooming like deadly flowers among the Devourer ships. The explosion took out dozens of mechanical entities and cleared a path for the other human vessels. The New Harmony followed, its railguns firing solid projectiles that punched through multiple enemy ships. The Devourers tried to adapt their shields, but kinetic weapons didn't care about energy barriers. "Captain," Dr. Wright called out from his station, "they're learning fast. They're already modifying their hulls to better absorb kinetic impacts." "Then we switch tactics," Captain Vasquez replied. "All ships go to Pattern Delta. Confuse them." The human fleet scattered, each ship attacking in a completely different way. Some used missiles, others used railguns, and a few ships had experimental weapons that Dr. Wright's team had cobbled together from spare parts. The Determination launched a spread of EMP devices that disrupted the Devourer's electronic systems. The mechanical entities had never encountered electromagnetic pulse weapons designed around human technology, and several ships went dark as their systems failed. But the Devourers were adapting to each new weapon as fast as the humans could use them. Their collective intelligence was learning from every attack, developing countermeasures and sharing them instantly across the entire swarm. "Captain," Lieutenant Kim reported, "they're not falling for our tricks anymore. They've adapted to most of our weapons." Captain Vasquez nodded grimly. She had expected this. The key was to keep the Devourers busy long enough for the Veltar to reach their target. "Time for the close quarters option," she announced. "All ships prepare for ramming speed." The plan was simple and desperate. If the Devourers had adapted to humanity's weapons, then the humans would turn their ships into weapons. The crew of the Phoenix Rising was the first to try it. Commander Johnson aimed his heavily damaged ship directly at a cluster of Devourer vessels and activated his engines at maximum power. "This is Phoenix Rising," he transmitted. "Tell Earth we did our best." The converted rocket ship slammed into the Devourer formation at incredible speed, its remaining explosives detonating on impact. The explosion destroyed a dozen mechanical ships and created a gap in their formation. But the sacrifice meant everything. Through that gap, Captain Vasquez could see the Veltar fleet racing toward the Devourer command vessel. "They're going to make it," she whispered. The battle around the human fleet continued to rage. The Determination took heavy damage as Devourer weapons found their mark. The New Harmony lost its railgun systems. Ship after ship in the Guardian Angel fleet was destroyed or disabled. But they held the line. Every Devourer in the system was focused on the strange new threat that fought with weapons they didn't understand, and tactics that made no sense. Sergeant Santos and her Marines were fighting hand-to-hand combat with mechanical boarders in the corridors of the Determination. The Devourers had adapted to human bullets, but they still couldn't handle Marines with knives and grenades in close quarters. "They're machines," Santos reported, as she smashed another mechanical entity with a crowbar. "But they think like machines. They can't improvise worth a damn." On the bridge, Captain Vasquez watched the tactical display as Admiral HFY's fleet reached the Devourer command vessel. The massive ship was trying to recall its swarm, but it was too late. "Captain Vasquez," Admiral HFY's voice came through the communicator, "we're beginning our attack run. Whatever happens, know that your sacrifice saved our people. Just get that thing, Admiral. Make it count." The Veltar fleet struck the command vessel with everything they had. Their energy weapons, designed specifically for this moment, punched through the ship's defenses and reached its central core. The effect was immediate. Across the system, the Devourer swarm suddenly stopped moving in perfect coordination. Without their central intelligence, the mechanical entities reverted to individual units, losing the collective behavior that made them unstoppable. All human ships, Captain Vasquez announced. The command ship is down. Time to finish this. What remained of the Guardian Angel fleet turned on the scattered Devourer ships. Without their coordination, the mechanical entities were just individual targets. The combined human and Veltar forces systematically destroyed the remnants of the swarm. When the last Devourer ship was destroyed, silence fell across the Veltar system. Captain Vasquez looked around her damaged bridge, counting her surviving crew members. They had done the impossible. Captain. Admiral Zexhi's voice came through the communicator, filled with amazement. How did your species develop such effective anti-devourer tactics? Your weapons and strategies were unlike anything in our databases. Captain Vasquez laughed, despite her exhaustion. Admiral, we didn't have anti-devourer tactics. We had no idea what we were doing. We just used what we had and hoped for the best. But your nuclear weapons, your kinetic projectiles, your close combat techniques, they were perfectly designed to counter devourer advantages. No, Admiral. They were designed to fight other humans. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We just adapted those techniques to fight machines. There was a long pause before Admiral Zexhi responded. Your species developed such effective warfare by fighting yourselves? Humans are really good at killing things, Captain Vasquez replied. We've had a lot of practice. The fact that it worked on aliens too is just lucky. Over the next few hours, rescue ships arrived to help the damaged human vessels. The Veltar offered to repair the Guardian Angel fleet using their advanced technology, but most of the human ships were too badly damaged to save. Of the 23 ships that had left Earth, only 8 were still operational. The Phoenix Rising and 14 other vessels had been destroyed in the battle. But they had saved an entire civilization. Captain Vasquez stood in the medical bay of a Veltar rescue ship, receiving treatment for injuries she had sustained when a devourer weapon hit the Determination's bridge. Through the window, she could see the blue glow of Veltar Prime. No longer under threat, Captain, Admiral Zexhi approached, her own injuries wrapped in alien medical devices. I have been in contact with the Galactic Council. They want to meet with your species immediately. Why? Because in one battle, your people have changed everything we thought we knew about warfare. The Devourers have been unstoppable for decades. They had adapted to every known weapon and tactic in the galaxy. Admiral Zexhi paused, looking out at the stars. But they had never encountered a species that developed its military technology by fighting itself. Your weapons and tactics were completely outside their experience. Captain Vasquez nodded slowly. So what happens now? Now, Captain, humanity takes its place among the stars. The Council wants to offer your species full membership and a permanent seat on the Military Advisory Board. The galaxy needs teachers who can show us how to think like you do. You want us to teach other species how to fight like humans? We want you to teach us how to survive like humans, Admiral Zexhi replied. When faced with impossible odds, your species doesn't give up. You adapt, you improvise, and you find a way to win. Captain Vasquez looked out at the alien stars and thought about Earth, now just a distant point of light. Humanity had answered a call for help from strangers and saved an entire civilization in the process. Admiral, she said finally, I think that sounds like something humans would be happy to do. The first chapter of humanity's galactic story was complete. They had arrived not as conquerors or diplomats, but as the neighbors who heard someone in trouble and came to help. And in doing so, they had shown the galaxy something it had never seen before. A species that turned its greatest weakness into its greatest strength and refused to give up no matter how impossible the odds became.